remove all the vacuum lines from the supercharger. Alright, whatever makes it easier. You will be moving the air valve around, so you might want to disconnect the vacuum line from the air valve, and there's two down there on the supercharger, here and here. Okay, and where's the other guy? I can't see you. And the air valve right here, this guy has another clamp down below. If you do not have the special Mercedes-Benz pliers for these clamps, you're gonna have to break the clamp and put a new clamp on. So make sure before you do this job, please have spare parts ready available, so you're not struggling, or you don't have to run to the store and, you know. Next thing off, what do we got? You're gonna have to remove the top of the supercharger, which is here, for the hose, from the intercooler. My intercooler is aftermarket, so yours will look differently and have different size clamps, so I can't really help you in that sense. These are aftermarket clamps with the that came with the intercooler that I bought, which is, you know, that guy right there. He's nice and big. He goes all the way up here. He's a big guy. Most of it's hidden, but that's alright. It still works out pretty good for me. If you will be pulling out the entire supercharger, you will also need to drain the radiator. Okay? You're gonna take the petcock, which is on your driver's side, right below the radiator, on the bottom over here, and you're gonna open it up. You're gonna have to drain it out because we have to access these hoses over here. You're gonna have to remove the hose, which is right here. That's a 7mm clamp. Okay, well, it's a 7mm nut to take off. Okay, and there's a Y also. The Y goes all the way to the aux water pump. The aux water pump, that's right down there. Okay, and the connector is right there. Okay, so you're gonna have to remove that. So you're gonna have to drain your reservoir and your coolant. You will also need to take off your coolant reservoir, which is there's two 10mm nuts. Okay, I don't actually remember this size. Okay, that size, I believe it's 1/4. Let me see if I'm correct. That is that is a Mercedes-Benz one. Okay. Yes, okay, that's 1/4. So you can remove this as well, put that aside, put it wherever you feel. Get that, you know, you don't even have to take it completely out. You just have to move it out of the way of the supercharger. So since this air box is gone, you just need to lay it down, move it over a little bit, just so you can remove what you gotta get. Your supercharger, let me remove my plate here. That connector right there is your supercharger clutch connector. At this time you can disconnect that, because you're gonna have to weasel that connector back there and out, just so you can take off the clutch. There are four bolts on top of the supercharger. Okay, they are, you can't see them, but when you get to this point, you'll be able to see. It's the It's the top piece, the top portion, which is like the output that goes to the intercooler. Okay, top part. Those are 13 millimeter bolts. There are 4 of them. You can't miss them. You could either use a 13 millimeter or a 1/2 inch socket, and you know those work pretty. They both fit pretty good. Actually the 1/2 inch works a little better than the 13 anyways. Remove those top ones. At this point, after the top output piece has been removed and you have all this other stuff out so you have access, you can actually pull out your clutch and you know, do it that way. Okay, you don't have to pull out the entire supercharger just to do the clutch. Okay, it's a 5/16, okay, right there. I don't know if you can see it on the end. That little bolt right there is 5/16, and you take that out. Okay, and this will, it's on a spline, and okay, as you can see, here's the old one. There are 2 washers, like little, not even a millimeter, you know, for each washer, and make sure you don't lose those, because that's your little spacer. So they're gonna be in there, and they're gonna fall out as soon as you pull this out. Okay, so here's your guy. There's your number if you need a number. Focus, unidamp, patent. Okay. So here, this is what I call the clutch plate. Now I don't know what the real name is for it, but that's what I say. Since you can't take it out, and then this is what you're gonna see. Okay. Well, technically you're not gonna really see it because it's gonna be down there. But if you get a camera close enough, this is what you'll see. Okay, just like this. You put that down. Okay. So if you're looking like, it's going to be like this. Don't do what I did, okay? I had to replace the front plates. If you saw my prior videos, which I say you should, you'll see what I did. I didn't admit it at first, but you know, after I realized what happened. Now don't forget, when you're removing this here, okay, the shaft, the spline shaft would be right here, okay, and then this guy here, this is your front cover, okay, and then this sits like this. Woo, there you go. Okay, actually, see, I could show you right here. Okay, let me take that off real quick. Alright, here's your front plate. Okay, here's your clutch. Okay, your clutch, as you can see here, there are 4 holes for 4 bolts. Okay, those 4 bolts will be a T15 Torx. Okay, a T15 Torx. Now this is if you're going to be just doing the clutch and you're not going to pull out the supercharger as I did. Okay, so here you go. Make sure she's in there and tying them all down. Okay, then you'll replace it here. See the bearing, and there's a snap ring. Okay, that goes down there. That's how it is. Alright, and then if you're going to see the final product, this will sit in the spline and sit like that. It'll be like a hair higher, so it's not touching, you know. So once it touches, then your supercharger locks, and then it starts spinning. Your root starts spinning, but it just sits a little bit higher, just a hair. What did Kevin do? Kevin, if you see right here, can I get it out? Kevin broke the top of the shaft Well, where the pulley sits, the bearing. Here's where the bearing sits, and then there's a slot, and that's where your snap ring sits. Well, lovely. So instead of me looking in there for the snap ring, I decided that I'm just going to pry the pulley off. Yep, that didn't turn out so well. So I was just going to replace the clutch and leave the front plate, this one, leave it just like that. But since I did a oopsies and I broke that, yeah, lovely. So don't do that. Remember, there's a snap ring in here, okay? The bearing, you know, I probably could keep this. I might even just resell it. So honestly, I don't really see much actually wrong with it now that I'm looking. This wasn't my bad product, the clutch, but the pulley and that still looks pretty good. Alright, back to where we were. Walking. Alright, here we go. Alright, now that you see how it goes, please do not rip the pulley off. Take off the snap ring and the pulley will just slide right off, and then you can take your Torx, your T15 Torx, and take off the 4 screws, and then the clutch would come off, okay? Do not pry off the pulley because it will end up in disaster. If you have an extra front plate to the supercharger, by all means, you know, just please be careful. Please be careful. I don't want you to be in the same predicaments I was, okay? I forgot there's one more thing. That's it. Okay. Here we go. What was keeping me from the job, okay? If you replace that front plate, okay, there is a gasket, a nose gasket right like this, okay? If you damage it, you're gonna need to wait to get a new one, because no stores, at least in my area, have this little guy that sits in the nose of the supercharger. Let me show it to you again. Show you. Let me show you. Okay, so if we were to take this out, yoink. Screw it. I'll just flip it. Whatever. Alright, here's our plate. Here's your oil. Where you put your oil. So like what I was saying, you could either get a syringe type and push it and suck all the oil out. It sits like this, suck all the oil out, or just put a pan underneath and inch by inch let it all drain out. That's what I did. I was like, screw it. Alright, here we go. So right here, this is where it sits around the shaft. Mine was screwed from the get-go because it's all warped. Whether this is from my dad, I did that, but I noticed it was warped and it's brittle, so I needed a new one to begin with. But they sit right here, okay? It sits in there, it's pressed in, and that allows, since this is all filled with oil, that doesn't let the oil seep through by the shaft, okay? If it's not corroded, or, well, it doesn't let it seep through the shaft if it's, you know, whatever, if it's not brittle or deformed in any way. But if it's deformed like the way it was, I'm surprised my car was still doing what it was doing. Alright, moving on. Now I showed you how to replace the clutch, okay? That's the way. After you take off the top portion, you could just replace the clutch. You don't have to do anything more. Take off the top part from the supercharger to the intercooler piping, remove it, take off the 4 bolts, and you can replace the clutch.